We have entered an era researchers identify as the New World Disorder, a period where global political violence has reached its highest level in decades. Since 2021, major state-based conflicts have erupted in rapid succession across Russia, Ukraine, Sudan, Gaza, and Myanmar. In 2025, 56,000 civilians were killed in these zones. This violence forced more than 120 million people to flee, the highest number ever recorded. This escalation is fueled by record-breaking spending. Global military expenditure reached $2.7 trillion in 2024 as nations prioritize defense and advanced munitions. This high level of resource mobilization allows modern militaries to dismantle a nation's infrastructure at a speed that was previously impossible. The 2026 Iran-US conflict serves as a case study for this rapid collapse. The war began with a decapitation strike that assassinated Ali Khamenei. Within days, the region saw heavy retaliation. Iran deployed advanced missile and drone strikes against military infrastructure and Gulf states hosting U.S. forces. Economic hubs like Dubai faced immediate paralysis. Airspace closures and trade halts caused currency values in neighboring states to drop, with inflation exceeding 40%. The shockwave reached the global market as the Strait of Hormuz closed. Oil supply shocks forced a rerouting of maritime trade, while strikes near nuclear facilities triggered international safety alerts. A sovereign nation can be shattered in less than a week. The consequences of that collapse will persist for several generations. The fragility trap describes a state where the damage of war extends deep into the systems that keep human beings alive, the invisible logistics and institutions that sustain a society. We see these systems fail when desalination plants are targeted in the Gulf, when agricultural supply chains break in Sudan, or when the healthcare grid is dismantled in Gaza. Long after the shooting stops, the physical legacy of war remains lethal. Contaminated farmland and unexploded ordnance ensure that civilian areas remain hazard zones for decades. There is also the generational toll. Today, over 520 million children are living in or fleeing conflict zones, a population marked by severe trauma. Communities cannot easily escape this trap. It is difficult to rebuild institutions when basic pillars like water, food, and mental security have been erased. Historical data shows the timeline for recovery. It took approximately 20 years to rebuild Bosnia and 25 years for Rwanda. In Iraq, the struggle to rebuild has lasted over 2 decades. Modern recovery estimates for recent conflicts are even higher. The World Bank projects that Ukraine will need over $500 billion and at least a decade to recover, while the damage from the 2026 Iran war will take decades to resolve. This UN habitat model illustrates the structural reality of rebuilding, a multi-decade process divided into 3 phases. First, the absorptive phase focuses on stabilization. The adaptive phase puts temporary infrastructure in place. Finally, transformative recovery requires permanently rebuilding power grids, social trust, and resilient institutions. The reality is that rebuilding is a non-linear process. You simply cannot fast-track the years of labor required to replace what was destroyed in a single afternoon. As of 2026, 239 million people require urgent protection, yet the humanitarian systems designed to help them face a funding deficit of 52%. Diplomacy struggles against the rise of war economies. When conflict becomes profitable for those in power, and tools like AI-guided drones allow for cheap, prolonged violence, traditional peacebuilding loses its leverage. Stopping this cycle requires a shift in priorities, the dismantling of war economies, and the aggressive funding of cost-effective interventions in fragile states. Protecting civilians also requires unblocking international security councils. The international community must reaffirm the laws that protect aid workers and refugees. Rebuilding infrastructure takes decades, but rebuilding human trust takes lifetimes. The choices made today in diplomacy and cooperation shape whether the coming decades are defined by recurring conflict or by a more peaceful world.